Like cooking, everything has a recipe.
A set of instructions to follow in order to gain a certain result.
Music is no different.
Be it ingredients for a dish, a set list for an amazing show,
Or a release strategy for a successful launch.
these are all recipes.
Hi, we're your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brandon.
Come and join us in our kitchen as we go through the Music Maker's Cookbook.
Let's get cooking.
Welcome to the Music Maker's Cookbook, the podcast that helps independent artists cook up recipes for success in the music industry. Year 2.
Year 2, officially, man.
Yeah, we just crossed our 1-year anniversary in last episode, 52.
Mm-hmm.
We just kind of chilled out and talked about, last year's roundup in that episode. So
Yep.
not much music making recipes.
And of course,
in
with
that,
technical
but
issues, right?
of course, every
Yeah,
time.
That's the way we celebrate around
Actually,
here.
though, the last 2 episodes we released, the first time we had a
Yeah.
power outage, and the last one, my mic was having some issues.
Yep,
So,
which, by the way, it did not happen again.
well, it's
that
like
day.
you replaced the APC.
Yeah, it didn't happen with the other one either. The one
Really?
that I replaced, yeah.
Maybe it was something with the, but the lights didn't flicker. Well,
Nope.
actually, I did look back at the video. The second time when we caught it on video and the APC caught it, or
They did
caught
flicker.
it, the lights flickered.
Oh, interesting. So it was the power.
It could have been,
Very short, though.
yes,
Hmm.
but still,
Okay.
the fact that it didn't catch it.
Yeah, very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I've switched out that UPC. Yeah,
This is the content and conversation you expect from us here at
that's
Music
right.
Maker's
That's right. We're figuring it out as we go. Yeah.
Setting up, it's like, we're going to have a great episode for you today, but let's just talk about power outages for the first couple of minutes. here.
Yeah.
But
so
no,
we celebrate with power outages and then buying new gear. That's the way we're going to celebrate.
exactly, except
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah. I get to buy a hard drive today. So
You
it's
do?
kind of new gear.
Kinda.
And it's like a new hard drive out. So and we're kind of nerds, so it's kind of cool, but it doesn't really count as gear. It's more of a necessity.
It just counts as gear. Anyways, today's episode is going to be about gear acquisition syndrome, what it is, how it affects musicians, how it affects us in the
That's
studio,
right.
and what you can kind of do to counteract it, and give you some examples of artists having amazing success using the bare minimum of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to just bring it up front, because if you've been listening to us for this long, like, what the hell is this episode going to be about?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it's going to be about.
Yeah. Gear. All about gear today.
Mhm.
And I love gear. I know you love gear too, Sean.
I'm an audio engineer. Of course I love
Yeah.
gear.
I mean, we're born to love gear at this point.
I feel like this is going to date this episode so much, but it's like that TikTok trend where you see, like, I'm an audio engineer. Of course I spend all
Yeah,
my money
exactly.
on gear
Yep.
and live in a
Yep.
shitty apartment.
Oh, man, that's going to date us so bad in a couple months. That's so funny, though. But it's relevant right now.
It's relevant right now.
That's right.
Except this release is 2 weeks after we
It
record
could not
this.
be relevant then.
It could not be relevant after then.
This might date us tomorrow.
Oh, it definitely did. Yes.
Sean, gear is really fun.
It is really fun. That's pretty much my whole philosophy to making music is just I want to have fun, and a lot of it's for me is gear, which is not
Yeah.
a good cycle to be in.
It's not, because gear is also really expensive.
Very much so. You can't see it right now, but I just put up a 32-channel mixing board in my studio behind the camera, so I'm not living by this. Actually, no, I did get this for free, actually. So
Well, see, that's the thing. I have in parentheses, gear is only expensive if you let it be expensive, right? There are other means to acquire gear, of course. And I'm not talking about taking out a Sweetwater credit card and financing it. No. You
Which
can
is a
buy
possible way to do
You
it.
can if you want, and you
you set
have
your
the money
budget.
and you have a budget and it fits in your budget and you don't mind being in debt for a certain but there are also other ways to get gear. Used market from a family friend, like something like you just got here, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody just throwing something out. Like the desk.
like the desk, yeah, literally
Right?
got this desk off the side of the road.
Yeah.
Just had to clean it up, polish it a little bit, and new setup for
That's
a new
right.
year.
That's right. There
And
we
honestly,
go.
like this bass guitar behind me, I got it from Facebook Marketplace for like $600 with a stand, a new set of cables,
great bass,
and a
too.
strap. It's a Mexican P-Bass Deluxe, and yeah, it's like a $900,
Yeah,
$1,200 bass, somewhere in
Yeah,
that range.
totally. We both have like very similar P basses.
Yeah.
Yep. Which really, and like even mine's the same color as his.
And we're going to talk about how I was able to get it for that price, and like how you can get cheap guitars and make them sound like $1,000 guitar for a budget if you learn a certain set of skills. That's like I said, this is going to be a good conversation. We're going to be talking about applicable ways on how to save money, where to look to save money, and also to say, like, at the end of the day, you really don't even need it to be that expensive if the song is that strong and you have good and creative people have a base understanding of what they're doing, even not a base understanding of what they're doing. If you're just going with the vibe of the music and not being too technical about it, you can make some really awesome stuff out. Gear should never be an excuse to not release your music. That's pretty much the philosophy that we're ending up with here.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And with that being said, too, there are necessities and there are niceties in the gear realm, right? If you have the money, I mean, by all means, go out and have fun. Do whatever you want. really. You know, if you have the money and if it's in your budget, that's awesome. If you don't have the money though, don't feel bad that you can't go out and do whatever you want, right? There are ways around it, and you probably don't need it anyways. I mean, most likely you don't need it anyways. Let's just be totally honest here.
Don't let it limit you.
Exactly.
Oh man, I want to make the song, but I don't like the way I don't like this guitar on that, so I'm not going to like make this kind of music because I need the Gibson if I really want this kind of sound.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Maybe
like,
don't.
Like, yeah, you probably don't. You probably don't need it, but it can be nice to have if you can afford it.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you can't, maybe you find a studio that has one at your leisure to be used.
Or a friend.
And just borrow from them.
Yep.
Which we're going to talk about a story from Tame Impala, how he just got a microphone from his buddy because he felt sorry for his mic collection and released a killer fucking album because of it. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting excited about
totally.
this. Keep telling us about gear acquisition syndrome.
There are thresholds you need to meet, however, so not all gear is bad. And luckily we live in a day and age where the barrier to entry is very low for consumers, which is great. I mean, you need the bare necessities, like I said, like an interface. You need some microphones. Depending on what mics you get, it can be kind of inexpensive to do. Headphones and like a computer. I mean, I'm talking bare necessities. However, like if you want to go get more gear, especially nicer gear, or just keep adding on top of what you already have, you need to know how to use that gear efficiently. And that's where a technical barrier kind of comes into play, right? So now you're wearing like kind of two different hats at once. You're trying to be creative, but you're also trying to do the technical side of things. You're using both sides of your brain. And the more gear you get, the more likely something can go wrong in your chain and hinder any creative experience that you have later on, or any productivity that you have later on to push your music forward. Now you're just sitting there trying to troubleshoot something that could take literally hours to days to figure out why it's doing something that it's doing, right? Or even worse, you need to get it repaired and having to wait on that crucial piece that holds and glues everything together, right? So, you know, there's two sides to this, and it all depends on what side of the aisle you want to fall on and what you are willing to put up with and figure out yourself. So,
yeah, but literally, like if you want to have a setup with a computer and you're just getting into it, or you just want the bare bones, you can get the Focusrite Scarlett Solo set, which comes with headphones, a condenser microphone, and an interface for $160.
yeah.
And then I'm just going to jump into it right now and just talking about how you can even start off with less. There's the engineer, Steve Lacy, who released his own project recently, but he's worked with artists like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Mac Miller, and the internet. And he uses Beats by Dre headphones, and that's all the gear he's got. He mixes on GarageBand on his iPhone, and he uses the iPhone built-in speakers for monitoring. And he even records directly into the iPhone, and he's released, you know, some awesome songs like Pride by Kendrick Lamar, Fold and Close, J. Cole, Jet Fuel, Mac Miller, like just to, and these are awesome ass songs and they sound great. Yeah. And he's literally just using his phone.
Yep. It's so funny because like I know a lot of people are hearing this right now, especially the people that are well versed in the gear studio area, and they're like, "Oh, I would never do that." Like, there's a reason why these companies dump so much money into these apps on your phone and on your iPad and things like that, right? They're not just a novelty thing. Although we treat them as their kind of novelty, it's like, oh yeah, only if you have like an idea and you want to get something down really quick should you use that. But really, at the end of the day, they're the same pieces of software. They're just dumbed down a little bit to fit onto your phone and be able to be used on your phone, right?
Yeah.
By all means, use it as a musical tool. That's what it's there for. It's not just a novelty to be like, oh yeah, you can play on the playground right here, and then you can go to the big leagues later and play, you know, on the basketball court over there, right? You know, like there's no difference. They're almost the same damn thing.
Yeah. I've got compressors in my rack off to my left here that I love using.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, a couple $100 a unit, a channel piece compressors. It's just compression with extra steps.
Yeah.
I could do everything that I can do in the box with the stock plug-in.
Sure.
On my phone, that it doesn't, like, on all honesty, other than being able to overdrive it in an analog domain, which I don't even do all that often with it, it's just there for fun. It's just an app with extra steps.
Yeah.
So there's nothing limiting you there from it.
Yeah.
And the same thing, like if you're recording your guitar and you want to, like, oh, I want this tone, but I need to have a Marshall stack in order to get that tone that I want. We've come such a far way with the technology nowadays. If you just record direct into your interface, which most of them have an instrument input at this point, you can run any sort of amp simulation apps that are out there. And there's Tons of them. In fact, a lot of plugins like Logic I think they have a stock one.
Yeah, they do.
It's built in.
Yep, they do.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
amazing.
Absolutely. And like, you know, like sure, maybe it's not going to sound the same as your amp, right? And like there's a valid argument there. Like physics actually take place there, right? Your cab is a resonance chamber. It's going to sound different, right? It's going to build up these frequencies. But at the end of the day, are we trying to achieve the same thing, or are we trying to achieve something good? And I think there's a very distinct difference there, right? If we're trying to achieve a very similar thing, go and use the piece of gear that you need to use.
Yes.
But if you're trying to achieve something good that is independent of trying to achieve something that should be the same, then you can use whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Does this clone of a microphone sound the same of the original? Maybe like at least 85% of the way there, but do you need that extra 15%? Most likely not. And maybe if you do, then go out and borrow it. Go out and rent it. Go out and buy it if you can, right?
Yeah.
It's just, this talk is very interesting because like I feel like you and I, we started at a time like in audio engineering when digital was really becoming a big thing, and there was a big pushback from the industry in terms of like the prosumer model, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we were at the tail end of it where it was like just starting to be accepted because who's the engineer for Adele? I keep forgetting his name.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Sheps?
Yes.
Yep.
And he mixes entirely in the box.
Yes.
And he's kind of been like the forerunner of you can do this in the box. Like you don't need all this hardware. You don't need a big studio. But yeah, when we were just getting into it, it was like, you need all this.
Yep.
And the same thing can be said like for artists out there.
Yeah.
Starting off like, oh, you need to have again, like a Marshall stack. You can't use a Line 6 pod.
Right. Yeah.
But now there's some killer albums out there with Line 6 pods.
Absolutely.
And certain versions of this device are now expensive on the back end market because all it takes is for one song to get big using a cheap piece of gear that has a vibe to it that people want to emulate.
I'm so glad you brought up the discussion of the emulators and the guitar sims, you know, because that is really where I kind of like first got into this, right? Is when Pod Farm was out by Line 6, the pods were out, and everybody was like, you can't achieve a good tone out of here or something that's similar to this, right? And there was a giant pushback. And now fast forward 10 years, because that was already 10 plus years ago. Now you look back and you're like, I wasn't trying to achieve that tone. I was trying to make my own tone this entire time. And now nobody gives a fuck. And the only people that give a fuck are the people that have spent thousands of dollars on amps because they're maybe a little bit upset that they had to do that in the first place. But even then, like they also have great pieces of gear that you can't usually emulate, right? At least to its fullest extent, right? I'm talking like the fullest extent, guys. Like I'm talking the extra 10%, you know, that gets you that extra something, you know, that magic. But I'm glad you brought that up because like I actually wrote an entire paper in school, believe it or not, on the history of guitar simulators.
If you still have that, you need to put that on your website.
I do have it.
You need to put that on your website right now.
I'll grab it.
You need to send me a link so I can link it in this episode.
I will because it was like an 11-page paper of where we came from and where guitar sims and how they were kind of saving the electric guitar within modern music. And yeah, I don't know. It was a really cool piece of project that I did. And I kind of want to expand on that idea now that I know more. But that was side tangent. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Because it brings up the whole point of like, here's the thing about music and talking to you being an independent artist, being a musician. Throughout history, it's always been the musicians that try the new thing, that embrace the new technology, that get the new sound, that makes it interesting for people to listen to. It defines the sound of an era. Like a lot of people who say, oh, you need this expensive guitar to get this tone or to do this kind of thing, and you can't achieve it with that. It's not built to do that.
Right.
If it fits the vibe, if it fits the groove and it sounds fun and the way you want it to be, that's the important part, not matching the sound of what things used to be. It's trying it, being creative and trying new things. So what gear acquisition really just does, the syndrome of it, oh, I can't do this until I get this. Oh, I need this in order to sound good. Oh, I have to play with this on stage in order to get people to listen to me. Or, oh, I need this vocal microphone because it sounds so much better. All that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
Like what really needs to happen is for it to get out there, for you to learn, for you to try new things with what you have and figure out what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses, and maybe let it help define your sound because it'll make something completely new. And that makes it interesting.
Totally agree.
Literally, when the Line 6 pods came out, you just said like, oh, you can't achieve a realistic guitar tone with that. they weren't like, you don't have to. You don't have to try to. The fact that it gets you 70% to a realistic guitar tone, it gets you 100% to the way of a Line 6.
Yep. 100%, dude.
Yeah.
Yep,
and like
totally agree.
if you look at historically, guitar distortion was not a favorable thing.
Exactly.
That was like the first amp that had like a built-in distortion to it.
Yep.
No, everyone thought like, why would you want that?
Right.
This is shit. You want the clean tone, and then it just defined the sound of rock and roll. And everyone, I hear guitars with no distortion way less than I hear them with distortion.
Yeah.
It's just a part of the sound now. Like when Fender came out, they were the cheap guitar.
Yep.
They were the guitar that like, oh man, have you heard this? Like, it's not a Gibson, it's not a Les Paul. Why would you want this thing?
Yep.
And then it already started using it. It blew up, and now they're $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 guitars for the American-made ones when they were like the cheap option back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah, totally agree, dude. Totally agree. I mean, just yesterday I was watching a video. Have you ever heard the band called Knocked Loose?
No, I'm not.
They're like a metalcore hardcore band, and they just came out with a new album like literally last week. And it's definitely metalcore album of the year in my opinion. But they were going down their live rig and they were using a quad Cortex by Neural DSP. And they were like, yeah, we just run it through a power amp and then, put it through a cab like normal. So we just run the head emulations, and it sounds great. It sounds like an actual real amp. You still get the character of the resonant chamber of like the cab, but you get the flexibility and the tweakability of the quad Cortex, and it's all built in one, and you can fly on a plane with it and just fine. And it sounds killer. Sounds so good, dude. So that's how far we've come. And I'm glad we're using Guitar Sims as that like benchmark, because that is like the most clear-cut example, I think, in the industry itself is watching how the guitar has developed throughout the years. 100%. 100%,
Well, because it's been a mainstay in music for like the longest as far as instruments go, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, when you think about it, like recording has done the same thing for sure, but it's also gone through different mediums, right? You've had tape, and then you had to listen back on vinyl or whatever. Then you had cassette, and then you had in between there like 8 tracks or whatever, and then you had CD, and then you had MP3, right? And like it changed what it needed to with the industry. Yeah. Guitar is guitar, right? So like you can see a clear cut evolution throughout the history of it. So I'm glad that you actually brought that topic up. And like I do think it's very important to the gear acquisition side of things, because it just demonstrates that you don't need everything in the world. Yeah.
So we've talked about the danger of falling into gear acquisition, of how it could prevent you from making your art or feeling like you can release it because you're not quite getting the sound that you want. And if you're not straight up getting the sound that you want and you don't like what you're getting with what you have, that's where it really comes into defining and setting up a budget. Because if you overspend and get in debt for these really nice, super expensive instruments, that's helping nobody.
Yep.
So having a defined budget and saying, this is what I can do, this is the kind of thing I have in mind that I want, allows you to research specific pieces that fit within that budget. So if you really want that Les Paul sound and you have a budget of $300, now you know, okay, this is my budget, this is the sound. Let me look up some, like what guitars, what budget options that have a Les Paul sound in there.
Yeah.
That have like a similar tone to it. And the internet is a phenomenal place for this kind of information, where people, we're all nerds about music here. There's definitely somebody else who's done a shootout between two guitars and is like, this one is like 80% or 90% of like a Les Paul for a fraction of the price.
Exactly.
It's like $300. Okay, cool. That's the guitar that I'm going to get then.
Yep.
Or like, hey, I want to sound like a Marshall amp head, but I don't want to run emulation. I want like a real thing. What is an equivalent for this price range? It now just gives you the information and the power to do that further research, to not break the bank and not put yourself in a negative position.
Exactly. And I know a lot of people are out there are also listening to this like, well, bro, it's not always about the sound, it's about the feel too. We're kind of speaking maybe towards new entries maybe into this, maybe more so, I would say, although this does apply everywhere else, I would say too. So like you most likely might not have the experience of knowing what you like something, how you like something to feel at this point, right? And are you paying the extra $2,000 to get a guitar that feels good? I mean, that's up to you to decide. For me, it's about practicality and usage, right? Yeah. So, but I just want to address that real quick, because I know I can hear people right now, well, it's not always about how it sounds, about how it feels too. Yeah. That's valid.
No, I'm glad you said that, because let's break it into those two categories. There's two things that you can that are worthwhile to spend money on. The first one is sound. We always focus on that because we're sound engineers. But the second is feel. You want to be able, you want to have confidence in the gear you have while you're performing, in order to get a good and emotional and personal take, you have to make like you want a guitar that feels good to play.
Yep.
You want a vocal mic that sounds the way you want it, so that like when you hear the playback, you're more confident in your performance. Because man, this just my voice sounds so good.
Exactly.
I really feel it. You can get lost in the performance. You want a drums to sound and respond the way. That's why a lot of drummers don't like digital kits.
Right.
Because they just don't feel like real drums.
Yep.
Same with any instrument out there. Feel is really important. So let's divide into those two categories. There's the sound and then there's the feel.
Yep.
So as we talked about for the sound, once you set your budget, you can start looking up things that have a similar sort of sound to it. That's how I would suggest you tackling getting what you want within a budget and fighting against the gear acquisition thing, because you're able to get the sound that you want.
Right.
On the flip side, the performance aspect, the feel of it that affects your performance, the main step you can do is just acquire skills on maintaining whatever instrument you have. You want to go back into guitar real quick and talk about some skills that are definitely worthwhile to learn to make a $100 guitar play like $1,000 guitar?
Yeah. So one of them would be, just knowing how to work on your guitar in general.
Yeah.
And I mean, like maybe filing down some frets or doing fret work in general, which could save you like literally hundreds of dollars.
Oh my God.
And a lot of heartache, And then also just knowing how to like sand down your neck if you have a glossy neck. Like if you end up buying a guitar that sounds great, feels great, but you hate the way that the neck feels overall because you hate gloss like me and Sean, you can find ways to cut down on that gloss, right?
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Other things like electronics and stuff, you can, and if you know how to like solder pickups, if you know how to put new pots in, if you know how to put new, capacitors and all that good stuff in there, that could also save you a lot of time and heartache too from having to take it into a luthier, right?
Yeah,
and you can design it yourself, right? You can fuck around, and it's just like working on a car, right? You can do whatever you want to it, and you can make it your own, right?
Oh yeah.
Sean has something really cool in his hand.
I just want to say, if you're listening to this auditorially, I'll talk through what I'm doing here, but we do practice what we preach on this. Like being a musician, being an engineer on a budget is not just possible with getting any sort of information you need by looking up YouTube videos and trying, or asking a luthier if you can shadow them for a while and learn these skills from them, or whatever it may be. But like we practice what we preach. Like what I'm holding up right now is a guitar that I'm currently working on, a parts caster. It's a really interesting strap body that one of my clients gave me that he painted and is working on. And the only neck I had laying around that really went with it is a full gloss Epiphone neck. I'm going to be carving and reshaping the headstock. I'm going to be sanding the whole thing down to get rid of the gloss because I don't like the way the gloss feels. And then oil finishing it. I'm going to take off all the frets because it looks like does that look like a medium size fret or a large fret? They look large.
They look large.
I'm probably going to replace the frets with medium frets. It needs a new nut and some new tuning pegs, and with all that, I'm going to make the neck way more playable for a fraction of the cost. And I got this neck for free too, because I actually got it from Ben.
Oh yeah.
They used it in a music video where they smashed, they had like their Epiphone was like in really bad condition. So in a music video, they smashed it and like threw the headstock into the ground. So I got it for free, and I had to like wipe off all the dirt that was just stuck in it.
Oh, that's sick. That's killer, dude.
But you can find like broken instruments and put them together to get like some awesome, cool sounding things for a cheap budget. What is this?
There you go. Scotch Brite. Try that on the neck.
Oh, steel wool? No,
just Scotch Brite.
Scotch Brite.
Yep.
That'll get the finish off?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it does a nice job of it.
I was going to use an orbital sander.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
Try that first. Tape off where the nut is. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then, because that's what I do. I usually tape it off with some painter's tape or something.
Because this is a real thick gloss finish if you want to feel it.
Super thick.
So
that'll cut down on it significantly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Just make sure that when you go over it, it's just an even all over, so like grab the neck. Yeah.
Well, I would sand it afterwards.
Sure.
Too, as well. And I've done that to a couple necks before. But
yeah.
Make it your own.
Exactly.
Like,
it's so funny because we're talking about like making everything your own, and we both have like the shit with us.
I can't believe you actually had this in your backpack.
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
is that funny?
I'll have to get some of my own or borrow that at some point.
You can borrow it now.
Killer. We'll just leave it at the corner of the desk and we're good to go.
There you go.
Boom. It's folding into the video.
Boing.
But yeah, so as I said, like we practice what we preach. Like I'm literally going to be building basically a custom Strat with a custom neck for $40.
Yeah.
After I buy the fret wire.
Yep.
And the stain for the neck once I finish sanding it. What?
Yeah, dude.
That's crazy.
I mean, it beats the hell going out and buying like a $3,000 guitar, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, let's make this abundantly clear too. There are guitars out there that are like $400, $500, like some Squires that feel great and also sound great too.
Squire's been killing it lately.
Yes, they have.
Like
They've
the new
been
Squires
absolutely
are
killing
fucking
it.
solid.
Yeah, I've heard Epiphones are really nice right now too. They're both killing it in the game, and if you put your nose up at Squire or whatever, then you're definitely missing out because there are some good pieces out there. I swear. Sure, you have some duds out there, no doubt, but honestly, I've been very impressed with what Squire has been doing.
Yeah,
I have been. Seriously.
Cool.
Yeah. Where do you want to go next?
So at this point, we've talked about getting the tone that you need on a budget, and also getting the feel that you need on a budget, and allowing you to turn what you have in something that feels and sounds the way you want it, without having to necessarily go out there and buy something new or get something new. And I pulled up this guitar that I'm working on just to express and showcase the alterations that you can make to a guitar. But if you currently have a guitar, like if let's say you have a Squire and you're like, man, I need a Strat because it's not playing right, or it's not the sound that's right. There are a couple quick modifications you can do to turn that Squire into a Strat without having to buy a whole new guitar. I mean, that's the real thing. You don't need to keep spending money and acquiring new gear. You don't need a whole locker of guitars or whatnot if you don't have the budget for it to really make your own impact in music. I mean, just pull up a couple examples, like one of the biggest ones we know of right now that released an amazing album that topped charts and broke records was Billie Eilish's When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Literally, you could have the same exact recording setup as Phineas.
Yep. Or less.
Or for $3,000 or less.
Yep.
Like they literally did it in a bedroom, and like literally $2,000 of it is because of the interface that he uses.
Exactly.
And you could get a much cheaper interface. Like this microphone that she used for vocals on that's got millions upon millions of streams and plays and albums purchased and all that, like, is the Audio-Technica AT2020. That's $100 mic, brand new. And I guarantee you, if you go to your local pawn shop, you're going to find like 5 of them.
Oh, yeah.
in the case.
No, hands down. Amazon used for probably $75.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's insane. So if you don't, this is kind of turned into gear acquisition as well as budgeting.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of both, but like if all you have is an AT2020 from when you started off a couple years ago, don't feel like you can't make awesome music because you don't have a Universal Audio, TLM.
Yep.
Hey, I've heard all these albums use these great microphones. All my engineering buddies or recording friends say, you need to get this better microphone. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't need the Neumanns. You don't need the Sonys, because I know that's where a lot of people are looking right now, is like the Sony C800G or the Neumann U87, right? And like, yeah, sure, those are heralded as some really nice microphones, but they're not a necessity by any means.
Yeah. Same with Tame Impala on his Lonerism album. Like his drum setup is a Rode K2 valve condenser that was given to him by a friend, so he didn't even pay for it. And a Shure SM57 on a snare and on a kick.
Yep.
And he just played around with it until he got the sound that he wanted.
Yep.
And album blew up. Tame Impala sound is so specific and so unique to him that like now people try to emulate that.
Yeah.
Because it just became such a unique and cool sound. When really it's just him being creative with what he had. It's using what he had to make the music. You didn't have to go out there and buy a whole bunch of new stuff. And as we started this whole thing off with, the first thing I said was Steve Lacy, who literally uses his phone microphone and GarageBand, which is an app that you can get. I think it's just for free on iPhone.
Yep, it is for free. Yep.
Yeah, literally. I mean, you have to pay for the iPhone, but a lot of like, we all have phones.
Yeah.
Even if there's Android equivalents to GarageBand and whatnot.
Yeah, like BandLab.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But literally just the freeware on your phone has made albums and singles and songs that get millions of listens
Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
It's all just about like the vibe that you're going for and making sure that it fits within it. The tools are almost irrelevant.
Yep.
It's, as we talked about with the compressor, it's just compression with extra steps to have a physical compression.
Yep. Exactly.
If it's what you want, if it's fun, if you've got the money, go for it. But really, there's no reason.
Yeah. It's usually never about the tools. And we like to make it about the tools because it just seems like it's the easiest solution to everything. And it's really not. It's not about the tools. And it almost never has been. And sure, there are some situations that are like, oh yeah, we couldn't have gotten this sound without this because it's so unique and different or something, right? Or something was wrong with the unit itself and it got you some kind of tone that you liked, right? Now everyone's trying to emulate that tone. Well, I'll tell you this though. I'll tell you this. Why don't you let the people that love gear be the ones that have the gear and you just rent time from them? AKA the recording studio.
Yeah.
That's a good way to save some money and build it into your budget, right? You get all the access to the gear that you want, right? But you don't have to have the cost of it, right? So you will have a cost at recording studio. Don't get me wrong. Like it will be expensive, but I guarantee you that cost is lesser than what you would spend on the gear itself, depending on what you're going for, right? I mean, let's be honest. Like if you're going for an American-made telly with like 6 different amps you want to choose from, all boutique amps with like 5 different cabs, and you're running it through a console. I mean, just the console alone is going to cost you upwards $50,000. You know,
Depending on the console.
Depending on the console and what it is. And then the amps themselves are going to cost another 10, 15, depending on what they are, right? And that guitar is going to cost you $3,000. So, I mean, and you could pay for studio time. That'll cost you, I mean, if you're doing an album, 5, 6 to 10 grand total, depending on how many songs and where you're going.
Yeah.
Just saying that it might be a better trade-off than buying the gear yourself. Would it be nice to have? Certainly. And is there resale value? For sure. But it's a good way to save money if it's not in your budget.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's somebody that you're paying that knows what to do with that gear to make you sound a certain way.
Yeah. And once
achieve
again,
a certain tone.
And the reason you would go out and do that is, once again, back to what it is that's the vibe you're going for. That's the groove, that's the sound, then that's the way to do it. But you don't let that limit you creating music and getting it out there. Plus also, like we talked about the skills you can learn to maintain and upgrade a guitar or whatever instrument that you're playing to make it play and feel like a more expensive instrument just by maintaining it. On top of that, like the skills of you as a musician allow you to get more sounds and tones than you would otherwise. Like I'd much rather, like I have this buddy Tyler who's a phenomenal piano player. Sometimes he comes in and does like studio work in our studio, or like Joe, for example.
Yeah.
He's literally like playing with a Paul McCartney cover band right now, like as his full-time thing as a piano player.
Yep.
I would much rather, like, he can get sounds out of a piano, like a shitty, really cheap old 80s Yamaha piano that's got really crappy sounds in it. He can get a better sounding vibe and performance and make a better song on that than I could play on a Steinway.
Totally.
With hundreds of thousands of mics and preamps and boards and whatnot. Just because that's who he is as a musician. Yep. That's where his strength is. Like, I would much rather have him perform on that on a song that I'm working on than have me perform on a Steinway.
Yep. I totally agree. There's a time and place. You know,
there is.
There's a time and place, and this conversation is tough for Sean and I because we love gear.
Oh yeah.
We are those types of people that love gear. There are those types of people that hate gear, though. And if you're one of them, please let us know, because you got to tell us how to do that. Seriously, because it'll save us a bunch of money. But like you said, sometimes it's all about how you play it, too. Like, same goes with guitar. Like, depends on how you strum, depends on the pick that you use, the strings that you use. It's all culminates. It all culminates at some point. And you don't need to spend an arm and a leg to get there. You just don't need to do that. Unless you want to. I mean, by all means. But just letting you know now that once you get it past a certain point, it's a rat race.
Here's the last thing I want to end off with. When it comes to performing sound or recording sound and making it the way you want, like this is the end way. I'm going to end with this to discredit needing to get all this gear to result with however you want your sound to be and the way you play to be. No matter what situation you're in, if you're performing on a guitar, there's the guitar. Like there's the strings you use, there's the action of the strings, there's the finish on the neck that helps how you play. Then there's the pickups, and then there's the wiring into the jack. There's the shielding inside of the guitar.
Yep.
From the jack, there's the connection between the cable in the guitar to the cable in the amp, and there's the cable itself. How good is the shielding? What is the connection contact point?
Yep.
Now you got the amp head. How is the connection jack in there? How old are the tubes in there? Does it like are they new? Are they fresh? What's the tone of it? Then it goes to the processing of the EQ, the gain, the distortion. Well, this is like ignoring a pedal board to begin with. There's all these connection points within the pedal board.
Yep.
From there, it goes to the amp. The cabinet. From the cabinet, there's like inside the cabinet's the speaker, which is affected by the cabinet. Is it open back or closed back? Is there mesh in front? From there, there's the microphone in front of it. What's the distance from the speaker? Is it on axis? Is it on axis or is it off axis? Then there's the cabling connected to the microphone that goes into the board or the interface. From there, is it going through any processing like EQ? What's the wiring between the EQ? Then there's the compressor. What kind of compressor is it? From there, it's going into your computer. How good is the D to A conversion? From there, inside of Pro Tools, what effects are they putting on it? You have all these things that are being done to adjust the sound. Then it's getting rendered back like as a digital file. Then it's being transferred in the cloud, on a server out there, being streamed on a phone. That's then converting it back into audio through sending through Bluetooth. You got the D to A converters that are built into this device, and then whatever the device is being transmitted to, if it's Bluetooth, is it like a separate, like a good speaker, or is it an old shitty speaker? It's just playing through the phone. Is it plugged into the car? And then it's being put through those speakers, going through the air, which affects sound as well, into your ears, and the person is saying,
which your ears aren't perfect either, by the way.
Exactly. And then that person, be it you or somebody else, saying, yep, that sounds good.
Yep.
What the hell?
Yeah, dude. What a ride. That's all the signal chain.
Yeah. What's the important part in there?
Yep.
What is the one thing that's going to make the whole thing sound different? It doesn't exist. It's not important.
Yep.
The vibe is important. The performance, the emotion, the story that's being told behind how it and how it's being conveyed. As long as that is being captured, that's what makes it interesting.
Great way to frame it.
There could be thousands of problems all along this chain. In fact, I guarantee you there are.
Oh yeah.
But if it sounds good and it's the way that you want it to, and it captures someone's attention and interest when they're listening to it, that's the important part.
Yep. That's all that matters.
Yeah. None of it.
Well said.
None of the rest does.
Well said. Well described. Well described, dude.
Yeah. So don't ever think, man, it would sound better if I just had this $4,000 Gibson guitar.
Yep.
I'm
not
shitting
always
on
the
Gibson
case.
because I don't like Gibson.
No, me neither.
But
shit.
Old Gibsons play beautifully.
Sure.
Like, whatever. And even then, like, is that? Anyways, I don't like Gibson.
Yeah,
as a
we'll talk
company.
about that
I don't like
later.
Gibson as a company.
Maybe we'll do a whole episode on Gibson. No, just kidding.
But yeah, no, it's not going to make everything better.
No.
Because once you get it, then you're just going to find something else, then something else, and something else, and
It's
then
making a % of a % better because
your bank accounts can go down. And not even that point. At a certain point, the law of diminishing returns.
Yep.
Which I know you're a fan of.
I am.
At a certain point, is it better or is it different?
Yep.
And that's something I tell my clients in the studio all the time. They'll ask me, hey, can you change this or edit this or move this forward a half a millisecond or whatever. And it's like, okay. Let's sit back here. At this point, are we making the song better or are we making it different?
Exactly.
Are you making your sound better or are you making it different? And which is more important to you and all that.
Love it.
It's hard to stop. It's hard to but at the end of the day, none of it matters.
Yep.
Which, man, we are gonna get. I've been more adamant about this episode than you. But
You have been.
I'm gonna get lambasted.
Which is incredible because you like gear more than I do, I think.
I do, but that's because it's fun for me.
Yeah, right.
I know none of it matters. I'm gonna get blasted for this because I'm literally saying 90% about what makes music doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which is a very, very unpopular opinion.
Yes, it is.
So this clip, when it gets cut up on TikTok, might get blown up. Me being like, hey, your music, don't fucking care too much about it.
Yeah, dude. Hey, better you than me, man. I'm scared now. I'm scared. I don't know this man. Never met him before. Not associated. Yeah.
On the next song you make, just try not caring as much. Try not thinking as much. Try just going with what feels right and see how it turns out. If it turns out better, fantastic.
Yep.
I honestly would put money down that it will. because it's the humanistic part of it that makes it more important than all the technical and the gear and the mumbo jumbo behind it. So that's my homework for you. That's my plead. Just give it a shot. Some of the best work I've ever done in the studio is work I've done when I've stopped caring about being technical and just went for how it felt.
Yep. So true. Totally agree. All about feel.
All about feel. Oof, that was my rant.
That was really nice. Great rant. Great. No, well said, bro. Well said. Absolutely.
I love looking at the waveform of this podcast episode for the past 10 minutes. It's just me.
I think you described it to a T, though. Yeah, I think that's very well said.
That being said, is anything else you want to say or good about?
No, I feel good about that. I feel good about that.
Yeah. I feel like I can probably cut this down quite a bit.
Maybe.
There's a lot of redundancy that I'm on my part.
No, mine too.
To find out exactly what I wanted to say with this episode.
No, it's a lot of exploring, because we have to say it the right way. Don't want to piss anybody off.
I want to piss everybody off.
Yeah, I kind of do too. Fuck you. No, I'm just kidding.
He doesn't mean that.
I don't.
But I do mean it when I say your music doesn't matter as much as you think it does.
Damn. I'm scared of Sean today. The Dunkin' coffee.
I say that with love, though.
Yeah, it comes from a good place.
It does.
It comes from a good place.
It does. It matters a shit ton, but not as much as you think.
Bars.
That's just my personal philosophy. If you agree with the fact that you don't have to be precious with music, it's the flaws and the humanistic and the performance that makes a song sound special and makes the emotion and the story behind it really pop when that's the forefront of it, then contact me at swsrecordings.com. I do remote mixing and mastering for acoustic, rock, and folk music. I do one-on-one coaching to help you talk about, hey, what microphones do you have? What interfaces do you have? Tell me about your room. I can help you set it up to get the best recording quality possible and get the sound that you want out of what you do have to really get a good recording, to get an awesome sounding song that emphasizes these things about your music. Also, you can contact me for one-on-one business coaching. That's basically, well, not business coaching, artist development, basically the same thing. Yeah. Which is basically this podcast, but more specifically set towards you, what actionable steps you can create to make a living in this music industry that is just what our whole goal is to do.
Absolutely.
And also Brandon does some really awesome things for independent artists. What do you do, Brandon?
Yeah, so I do a lot of tracking, mixing and mastering, producing, whatever. I don't care. I'll work on it if you send it my way. Honestly.
He's not kidding.
It's just a lot of fun. I love doing this. So you can find, and if you want to learn more about that, you can go to studio222recording.com, or you can find me on all social media platforms at studio222recording or my personal _ Brandon McLeod.
Yeah.
Hit me
Much
up.
simpler.
Just let me know. Let me know, dude.
Or you can contact us directly for this podcast and what we do here at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com. Give us an email. Let us know what you think about the episodes, some future topics that you want us to cover moving forward, as well as potential interviewees that you'd like us to interview, because we want to really start diving into more interviews this next upcoming year. Yep. Talking to people that do things that we don't do, that are more knowledgeable than we are, to really help you formulate your, create your recipes and start cooking in the kitchen that helps you make awesome dishes to make a living in this industry.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let us know any of that. If there's anything you want us to cover or whatnot. You can also follow us on social media at TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, not on X. We don't have that yet.
Yeah.
But it's all at Music Makers Cookbook. So give us a like there, give us a follow there. We do release some more unique content that we don't really talk about on the podcast. So if you like the podcast and you want some more stuff from us, definitely check out those platforms. And yeah.
Bon appetit.